You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
This week's Law & Order Marathon winner is Julie Frazier of Waco, Texas. Julie will get a marathon decal showing she watched 26.2 hours of her favorite crime show. To be next week's winner, sign up at lawandorderpodcast.com.
I'm Kevin Flynn with Rebecca Lavoie and James Petrogallo, and these are their stories.
You think you know who did it, but you don't know who did it. Law and order, law and order, law and order. It's no ordinary police procedural, baby. It's the FNOG of police procedurals, baby. Law and order, law and order, law and order, law and order. These are their stories, these are their stories.
Welcome to These Are Their Stories, the podcast about network TV's most enduring crime franchise and the real-life cases that inspired their shows. I'm Kevin Flynn. Each podcast will break down an episode from either Criminal Intent, SVU, or The Mothership, and today we're looking at Law & Order Original Recipe, Season 15, Episode 16, The Sixth Man.
Your Honor, the victim was suing Mr. Inwood for $20 million, and Mr. Inwood may have blamed him for his suspension, which has cost him dearly both financially and professionally.
Joining me to do just that is true crime author and the host of Crime Writers On and Slate's Mom and Dad Are Fighting podcasts, Rebecca Lavoie. Hello, Rebecca.
Hey, Kevin. I'll do my best not to heckle you too much during the show. Promise.
Yeah, even though it's a tie-in to the show, that happens all the freaking time.
It does. It's basically what we're making our living doing.
Well, rounding out our panel is a very special guest from Small Town Murder and the Crime in Sports podcast, James Petrogallo. Hey, James.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to get into some Law and Order nerddom. This is great. I'm pumped.
You can totally geek out with us.
And sports.
And sports. Yeah, this is great. There's all the elements.
It's the rare episode where our guest isn't going to ask, why did you have me on to talk about this episode?
Yes. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, I get it now. This is perfect. Yeah, this makes perfect sense.
Are you an expert either in crime or sports?
It's come to, at this point, I feel like those are the only two things I know about at this point, are crime and sports and murders that take place in tiny places that no one wants to go to. That's all I got at this point in my life.
Well, your podcasts are very popular. You work with your partner, Jimmy. And how did you guys, you're both stand-up comedians, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And now you sit down in front of a different kind of mic. How did you guys come together?
Well, we met in a sleazy motel parking lot. That's actually true. That's where we met. We both did comedy, and a comedian friend introduced us, and he happened to live, not Jimmy, our friend lived in a sleazy motel, and so we met in that parking lot, and we just started, we always had a good vibe, we go back and forth well, and we like making fun of things, and so we decided to turn that into a podcast. Let's record this, and that's what we do now, so.
It sounds like the cold open of an SVU episode, right?
They meet in a sleazy motel,
That's
parking lot. And it's kind of how you and I met, too.
Yes.
So.
And then we found a body by the dumpster.
That's how every great relationship starts.
We once had on musician Mike Doty, and he explained how he got into Law and Order, and it's that as a entertainer, you're often traveling, you're working in the evening, and so the daytime, what's on TV in the hotel is Law and Order. Is that your experience?
No, actually, I'm from, I've got into Law and Order when I was a kid. My grandmother's a huge court junkie and would watch every court show on TV and all the ones in the afternoon, Divorce Court and Superior Court and all those like early 90s, late 80s shows that would be on in the afternoon. And so anything that has to do with court, I've always been into. Any sort of, Law and Order was like the perfect show when I was 12 when it came out. It's like, this is great. So I've been kind of in it since the beginning for Law and Order.
And did Grandma want you to be a lawyer, and she's terribly disappointed by
Yeah, of course.
Career choice.
Yeah, she's from Italy. She wanted, you go to the law school and blah, blah, blah. And then, no, not at all. No, I go to no school and I make fun of people who are at their lowest point already. So, really, she's very ashamed. I bring great shame to the family.
I think Hudson University has an online course that you probably could take
Probably.
all the way from Arizona.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt that.
That great institution, Hudson University.
Yeah, where only half the faculty are rapists. The other half are murderers.
We are Hudson, where the bad guys go to school.
Perfect.
You're a longtime Law and Order nerd, self-professed. Of all the franchises, which two cops are your favorite detective team?
Favorite Law and Order detective team.
Okay, all right. Now this is a tough one here. You got to go you gotta go with Logan and Briscoe. I feel like that's your classic.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
I see Lenny Briscoe is probably my favorite human being ever. But he replaced Paul Sorvino, which is he's Paul Sorvino, man. They had Paulie from Goodfellas on there, which is incredible. That he was great too. He had a gentle touch. I love Paul Sorvino. But then Lenny Briscoe comes in, and he's your uncle that makes Thanksgiving bearable. You know what I'm saying? So I have to go with him. He keeps the hot-headed Logan at bay. That's my team right there, definitely.
Classic pick.
Yeah, classic.
James, do you have a favorite prosecutorial team?
Favorite Law and Order District Attorney Prosecutorial Team.
Oh, man. See, now here, it's very odd. I'm very partial to first season prosecutorial team. Pre-Jack McCoy, we're talking. If that guy, the first guy, now if I...
Ben Stone.
Ben Stone, thank you. I remember the actor's name, and I couldn't remember the actual character name. If that guy's prosecuting me, I'm worried. Personally, he looks like a prick. He looks like a prick that has his facts straight, and you know what I mean. I'm telling you right now, you got to Robinette, the assistant there. He really had it together. Think about this. This was 1990. You had a black assistant DA. That guy had his shit together. You know what I mean?
He had the high fade.
Oh, he had the high fade. You know it. When you see that high fade and then the bald Stone coming in next to him, you know you're in deep shit at that point. To me, that's the team right there.
Sanctimonious, fact-knowing prick and a high fade. Yeah, it's a perfect combo. 1-2 punch.
Now, I don't know if you're up to date on SVU, but the new character is Ben Stone's son.
Oh.
He is the new DA. So they're bringing like everything back around again.
Wow.
This is stupid.
Only the son, who apparently, at one point was a pitcher for the Chicago Cubs, is not as freaking sanctimonious as Michael Moriarty was,
Yes.
as Ben Stone.
Yeah, Ben Stone. He those people, you could see it in his eye. I feel like the jury felt him. They were like, "Oh, he's pissed." Yeah, they knew it was coming. I like that.
And he always had that like Shakespearean waver in his voice where he was like, "You don't know."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Oh man, that was some serious stuff going on in court right there. That's drama, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Now let's look at the first half of this episode, Season 15, Episode 16, The Sixth Man. There lies on the floor Ira Walderman, a diehard sports fan who died hard in his apartment. Fontana and Green know one thing: the killer is big.
He was lifted off his feet by his neck. The drag from his body weight helped to break the vertebrae.
And Wallerman was what, 5'9"?
Roughly.
So we're looking for somebody who was what?
Oh, well over 6 feet. And muscular. Whoever did this was a big, strong guy.
Was he killed over his rent-controlled apartment worth millions of dollars? Nope. Maybe it's the $20 million lawsuit he has against a pro basketball player from that storied franchise, the Philadelphia Cannons. Enter point guard and tall man Silas Inwood. He was suspended for an on-court fight with New York fans who threw beer at him. Other season ticket holders said Walderman always heckled Inwood when Philadelphia was in town. The detectives learned Walderman showed up at a launch party for Inwood's video game when he got into an argument with Inwood's equally tall agent, cousin Reggie Eggers. So, who did Walderman open his door for? Inwood says he was at his college coach's place the night of the murder, but he got a parking ticket near Walderman's apartment. When they learned Inwood had a dismissed and sealed arrest, Green uses a loophole in an old criminal database to find his fingerprints. They say they'll arrest Inwood the next time Philly is in town, which seems to be all the freaking time.
Yeah, really.
Okay, James, we hear the characters bemoan how athletes have changed over time. Fontana says you...
Sports page nowadays. You read it, it's like reading a crime blotter. You can't tell a felon's without a scorecard.
They're not wrong, James, are they?
No, it's funny too. No, they're not wrong at all. There's a lot of hallmarks here of truth in a lot of this, except for that.
If they were wrong, you'd have no podcast, essentially.
That's the thing. I would have lasted like 3 months. We would have been like, "That's all we got. Thanks a lot, everybody. That's it." The thing that bothers me the most is he's a 6'9" point guard, which that doesn't really exist outside of Magic Johnson. I feel like they could have done a little better with that. First of all, I love the classic here. The delivering laundry to the dead guy is the way to bring him in.
Walderman, you left your laundry in the dryer. Again. Walderman!
Usually it's, they're running in the park, something like that. I like that he's pissed off at this guy. Hey, Walderman, you dickhead. Oh, your laundry's in here again. Like he's real pissed off at it. And he go, oh, no, he's dead. And now he's not so mad about the laundry anymore. I like that opening a lot right there. This is a solid opening altogether. This is an intriguing Law and Order. You know he's huge. Oh, it's perfect. I'm in right away.
But I would imagine, even though after they found out he was dead, they would still take all of his old clothes out of that dryer because they need it.
Yes.
In that apartment.
Oh, they're definitely leaving the basket.
Yeah, it's laundromat politics. Yeah, I mean, that was rude.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're dead. You still take your damn laundry out of the dryer. I mean, that is your responsibility.
Should be crawling to the door.
New York City laundry is hardcore. Yeah, you got to put that in your will. If you die, someone's got to come get your laundry ASAP. You got to have that set up ahead of time. Definitely.
Now, Kevin, I know we're going to focus heavily on the sports storyline in this episode because that is important. But you talked about the MacGuffin storyline, the real estate storyline, and you know that I am obsessed with the real estate on Law and Order.
Yeah.
Like, I was loving this part of the episode. I loved when they went to the neighbor's apartment and they were like, your apartment doesn't look anything like that shithole apartment that the dead guy lived in. And she was like, ugh, rent control.
He's rent control.
Disdain.
I'm co-op. She was disgusted.
I loved it. I loved it.
The prospect that they would think she's rent control. How dare you? I am co-op. You kidding me?
She's a nylon, which I hadn't heard before.
That's a made-up expression. Nobody says
London.
that.
No?
Nobody, no. That was
I've never heard that one either.
The co-op people say that.
Yeah, that's we're not in the co-op circle, guys. That's our problem.
So what's the chance that in a stadium of 30,000 people, this player would continue to hear this one fan and be rattled by him?
Zero. I actually did some research on this. Actually, I got into there's this book.
Get the fuck out of here!
I swear to God, there's this book called Scorecasting. Okay, it's a terrific book about basically psychologically why sports happen the way they happen, and it's very predictable and things like that. And they talk a lot about this actually. And athletes completely block out fans. They do. I've known professional athletes. They don't hear unless there's 300 people in the stands. Then they'll hear individual people. Besides that, it's a hum. And like in basketball, you know how they wave around things and scream when they do foul shots on the road?
Yep.
You know, they're waving around balloons and shit. Well, that actually does zero. Like there's the exact percent. They're just as good at shooting free throws on the road or at home. So that proves they don't hear the crowd at all. So this is a complete crock of shit.
Or if you're Shaquille O'Neal, you never make it anyway.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. This is garbage.
But there's an old baseball term which is called rabbit ears, which apparently, outfielders always hear X, Y, or Z, or they get rattled by it. I guess maybe that's just
because they're bored because they're playing the outfield in baseball. It's different.
And it's quiet,
not
too.
the same thing.
There's big lulls. There's big lulls in between pitches where it's silent in baseball and you can hear. That's more of a conversational thing. Basketball's moving. Basketball and football, they don't hear a damn thing from anybody unless they're like stopped and on the side.
Rebecca, can you take me to the Timeout Sports Bar, please?
Oh, you mean where the ladies wear prison underwear as their work outfit?
No, those are referees if they're horizontal stripes.
I understand. I knew what it was supposed to be.
Oh, you did? But fishnet stockings.
Fishnet stockings, a pair of bloomers, short little bloomers, and a tiny little bra, all in the referee's stripe, which basically just looks like the same as old-timey prison stripes. Yeah, it was hot. It was classy. I'm thinking about changing the dress code for our podcast studio after seeing that. Yep.
I could get down with that. I mean, for me anyway, I'd be pretty comfortable.
We usually record in that anyway, so I saw that and I was like, all right, I got into that. I was like, this is perfect. I see what they're doing. She's ready for work, obviously.
It's like one of those outfits. Like, do you put that on at home? Or do you change into that when you get to work?
Exactly.
Do you wear that on the subway? Like, how does that work exactly?
Well, I guess you take it in a very small bag.
Yeah, they have a locker room there. They have to. There's no way.
It must be. It's a sports bar.
Yeah.
They have to have locker rooms. Rebecca, this is our first episode that we've done where we have Fontana as one of the characters.
A.K.A. Dennis Farina.
Dennis Farina. Is he just a cleaned up version of Briscoe?
No, he's Dennis Farina. I love Dennis Farina. I don't know if you know that. Dennis Farina is in one of my all-time favorite movies, Out of Sight.
Out of Sight, yeah.
He is... I think he's got a little bit more of a fluidity to his policing and his jargon and his banter.
Are you talking to us? Because the only dog that's going to get put down around here is you. You want to tell your baby cousin to put a muzzle on it?
Briscoe has a rhythm and a pace that you come to like define Briscoe by. And Fontana, Dennis Farina's just a different kind of actor. He's a character. He's like a different kind of character actor. He doesn't have that sort of like big stagey kind of thing that, but no, I don't think he's a plug and play replacement at all. I think that it would have been great if he'd hung around for longer on the show because I felt like they were just starting to figure out what to do with him at the end of his very short tenure on Law and Order.
So James, you're obviously a Briscoe disciple.
Yeah.
What did you think? I mean, I don't know if this is season 15. I don't know if you stuck around this long to see him. But what do you think of this character?
Okay, the Dennis Farina, I don't mind him. I like that they went with a complete opposite of Briscoe. You had to go with obviously the older white guy, in the role just for aesthetic purposes. Clearly, that's the way it worked. But I like that they went with a completely different type. They didn't try to like get another, kind of. Briscoe had that kind of grandfatherly, like I said, that kind of uncle thing. This guy, Farina, has just a barely covered shield of rage. He's just got there's rage there, but just barely being covered, I feel like. So he comes across as very charming, but I feel like if you don't give him what he wants, he's going to give you the back of his hand. That's what I feel like with Farina. I like that in a detective.
Well, Fontana drives a Mercedes, wears tailored suits, and has walking around money. So they really never kind of dispel the idea that maybe he's mobbed up.
Yeah, and he talks about gambling a lot, too, in this episode especially. He's like, hey, some of us like to deal in cash. He's like, he's very like, he's like this old street cop kind of a guy from a foregone era.
And we know that Green has a gambling problem, right?
That's true.
And he doesn't really seem to be particularly sensitive to that in talking about gambling in front of his gambling addict partner.
Yeah, because maybe he didn't catch on.
Hasn't been told yet.
Yeah, really.
Here's an interesting bit of trivia. The character Fontana apparently transfers to New York from the Chicago Police Department. Mm-hmm. Both Fontana and Dennis Farina were both Chicago cops at one point.
Really?
Yeah.
Dennis Farina was actually a cop.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Was he really? Wow.
He was.
Wow. He reminds me of one of like the side characters in Goodfellas who's like an actual gangster. You know what I mean? And they turned into an actor. That's what he reminds me of.
It's like Abe Vigoda, like he really could pass for, actual mobster, and all the crew is like keeping an eye out.
I like the backstory too, because what they're basically saying is Dennis Farina can't not do that Chicago accent.
No.
So we're just going to build that into his character.
Yeah. You have to. That's coming out. Yeah.
It's convenient for everyone.
When they brought on Anthony Anderson, they made him
in the Blackish years of Law and Order.
Right, the Blackish years. They made him from Compton.
Right.
Like none of these guys, like he couldn't just be from Harlem if he has to be the quote unquote black cop. He has to come from Compton.
Yeah. Different kind of streets.
Different kind of streets. Yeah.
There's plenty of black people in New York. Like it's not, you could not. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Grew up in the Bronx or something.
Yeah, you don't have to like stretch to like make a real excuse. It's not like Sandy in Greece, where it's like, she's an Australian exchange student, Danny.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Unnecessary too, might I add. Very unnecessary, Sandy. I have a lot of Sandy issues, so that's a whole other podcast. Why'd she have her shoes off at Thunder Road? What the hell is she doing? Put your shoes on, Sandy.
Everywhere.
Yeah, she's in a sleazy, disgusting drainage thing for runoff, and she's in her socks and shoes like she's watching some lawn bowling in somewhere in England. It's ridiculous.
And why do you care about your 47-year-old rival, Cha-Cha De Gregorio? That woman is old as shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, why are you dating somebody's Puerto Rican aunt? What's happening, Danny? I don't understand it. What's going on?
She had more wear on her face than those tires.
Exactly.
and also the message of that is like, Sandy, if you want Danny to fall in love with you, completely change
everything about you.
Yeah, everybody change for who you want. Both of you change.
Dress like a waitress from a sports bar in a Law and Order episode.
That'll do it right there.
We have a Hey, It's That Guy.
Hey, it's that guy.
James, can you name the actor who played defense attorney Leon Childs in this episode?
No, and I recognize him, but I have no idea who he is. Who is that?
That's Joe Morton. He was Miles Dyson, the man who brought us Skynet in Terminator 2.
Okay, there we go.
8 years ago, my client was arrested. The DA declined prosecution, and as Mr. McCoy is fully aware, all records relating to that arrest should have been sealed.
Now we're talking. Thank you.
Yes, but more recently he was on Scandal. I believe he plays Olivia Pope's evil dad on Scandal, right? I don't watch that show, but I've clicked past it enough times to be like, that's the guy who's on
That's
Scandal.
on his IMDb page, absolutely. Hey, okay, get another little side note. If you think back to Terminator 2, who played his wife in Terminator 2? James, do you know?
Oh, my God. No clue. Haven't seen it in so long. Don't remember.
Rebecca?
Esapatha Murkison?
Yes, our own
Oh, my
Lieutenant Van
God.
Buren.
Holy crap.
Without the wig.
That is insane. Wow,
Yeah, so
my mind
Morton
just exploded.
has made 6 Law & Order appearances, 4 as this character, the defense attorney, and, well, I don't know. These quote-unquote, like, high-end defense attorneys, like, who get paid a lot of money by celebrities, aren't very successful. I don't know how come they keep getting these big retainers. Jack McCoy just keeps cutting him off at the knees.
That guy who used to be on The Wire is pretty good. He seems to win a lot of cases. The guy who represented Lewis on SVU and represents basically everyone on SVU.
Is that Buchanan, I think?
I don't know. It's the big guy. Yeah. And what's her face from My Big Fat Greek Wedding? But she seems to do pretty well. But the other ones suck. They completely suck.
Yeah, you're going down if you're a celebrity on Law and Order. You're. Speaking of that, by the way, I'm fascinated with the basketball player also because where are they finding 6'9" actors? Like he has to be like a failed college basketball player or something because there's just not a lot of 6'9" actors running around out there, and he's not bad either. Like he's not terrible. So I don't know where they found this guy. Good,
well, that
good
was
for
either
them.
a very short or a very long day for the casting director. That's Pancho Hodge, and he had his season at the Los Angeles Lakers.
There we go.
But and this is actually his first acting appearance. He continues to act, and I have to ask, can we get a rating or a review of his interpretation of Silas Inwood? Did he channel the character, Rebecca?
They put him in a fur coat when he got arrested.
God.
So there was that. I mean, it's fine.
How about the way he was eating in that restaurant,
The
James,
fancy
where
Philly restaurant?
where he would chew and he obviously didn't have anything in his mouth. He was just holding his fork and knife in a very classy way.
Look, all the fans look alike, all right? Especially the jerks.
I love the way he did it too because he would speak and then just take a cut and a bite. Like he really had it patterned out nicely. Yeah, I like that. Very, very poor object work there though on the acting on the dinner time. He needs to work on that a little bit, but otherwise he was very good at being tall. So good for him. Kudos
That was
for
his
that.
talent. Tall.
He was great at it.
Now, it really does seem like the Cannons are the visiting team in New York a lot.
Yeah.
Are there
Yeah.
like 6
Playing the
teams in
fake
this
Knicks.
league? Yeah, the fake Knicks.
Which was great because they actually filmed that at Madison Square Garden. So it was like they're talking about fake teams in a real place, which I really enjoyed. I thought that was really fun.
You mean Madison Arena?
Yeah. That's awesome. I love fake teams and fake names and fake arenas like that. And I love when they do that, when they make up sports leagues like there's something else. Can you not use, are you not allowed to use the name of a team? Is that a legal thing? Just the name of the team? Or do they really want to show logos?
It's licensing, right?
Well, I imagine because it's NBC,
Yeah.
that they are scared shitless to use an NBA team in this. Because of the parallels to the rip from the headline story, but also
because he's a murderer.
Because
So,
Stern would cry a little bit and say, "You can't do that," and we're going to go to TNT, and you're never going to see us.
Maybe if he was a
again."
murder victim, they would have let him use it. That's different. But he's the murderer.
Yeah,
it's not
there
going
you
to work.
All right, now let's take a look at the second half of this episode. At arraignment, Inwood's fingerprints were found on the victim's wristwatch, but you don't have to watch Law & Order for 15 seasons to know that the defense is going to get those fingerprints kicked out. Borgia learns that Walderman wasn't just a heckler. He was a stalker who showed up at Inwood's house, call Inwood's hotel room, and wake him up at night by playing Peter Gabriel from a boombox under his window. Inwood switches his plea to self-defense, saying he went to the apartment to reason with Walderman, but he came after him with a kitchen knife. At trial, we hear phone messages Walderman left Inwood that were laced with coded racial language. McCoy, in the middle of a celebrity trial, now decides it's time to get some more evidence. They find out Walderman talked to Inwood's son at that video game launch. Then on the stand, Inwood admits that went too far. Then McCoy asks the 6'9" athlete to stand next to a 5'8" bailiff to show how scary he is. The jury convicts Inwood, but his jersey is now the #1 bestseller. So did the writers miss a chance to throw in a whole bunch of extra basketball references in this show?
Oh, my God. With the puns and the...
Charges murder in the 2nd degree.
Guess Philly won't be going to the playoffs this year. This is almost as exciting as Mr. Inwood's last game.
Well, it's far from a slam dunk, so to speak.
Sorry, Ms. Borgia. There'll be no home court advantage for you today.
They were like, this is the time. It's like they've had all these on a blackboard. They had them all up on the whiteboard for like months, and they were like, we are going to use all these puns, and it finally paid off that they collected them for months and months. Oh, my God. So much.
And whoever on that writing team is a basketball fan, just like basically wrote on a piece of paper, here's what I would say if I were in the situation, and then handed that piece of paper to that poor actress playing the arraignment judge who had way too deep of a knowledge of professional basketball for anyone.
God, everything.
Not just for a judge, but for anyone.
Everything.
But the thing that I always notice is they have like these celebrity arraigned on murder hearings, and there's nobody in the everybody there's there for drunk driving and a little domestic violence, nothing too crazy.
Right.
And where's the press? Like, they should be like breaking down the doors so they could see this this athlete being arraigned on murder.
Yeah, they should be, but they're not, because this is Law and Order, and they saved some money in that scene.
And you don't get a home court advantage.
Oh my God, with the puns, with so much, so bad. By the way, this was like the quickest confession in the history of crime when they got him, when they were the negotiation.
What are you offering?
Man 1.
Man 2, no jail time, community service.
Man 1, best I can do.
Mr. Inwood admits killing Mr. Walderman.
They're just like, your fingerprints on the watch, and he's like, all right, he killed her, now what? Like, it was like, all right, he killed him, yeah, that's fine, now what do we do? Like, it was the quickest. That lawyer sucks. You think, they didn't take 5 minutes to think about it, to talk about it, there was 2 whispers, and then, all right, fine, we did it, yeah, fine. It was like, I know the Law and Order one's quick, always, with that, but this was excessive, I thought, especially for an athlete who's so goddamn arrogant. The whole thing, this is what I don't get to. In this whole episode, this guy wouldn't have cared about Walderman at all. Like, this basketball player, they're so self-obsessed, like star players like this. They're they don't give a shit who says what about who. If the guy shows up on his lawn, he'd have his cousin remove him or some shit, and that would be the end of it. Like, I don't understand how this guy doesn't have a friend he grew up with, a relative, a cousin. He goes over there himself. Are you kidding me? These guys, like, I know about these. They don't even get women on their own. They send people to take women to them.
Yep.
What do you think? He's going to knock on some schlub's door on his own? This is ridiculous. He would definitely have a cousin to take care of this, is what I'm getting at. So that was ridiculous. And I do have to say, most of all, I admire the player's decision to still wear 6-carat diamond earrings in court while testifying, because that says I'm a humble guy, and you can believe me there.
They totally would have taken that away from him because he would be able to use it as a shank or something like that.
Yeah, but maybe his lawyer brought them with him along with his suit. You know how they do that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions I have about like the way that story kind of unfolds in the second half of the episode. This is something that happens on Law and Order all the time that I just don't get. And we're just upstairs in our kitchen watching an episode and the same damn thing happened. The perp is sitting with their lawyer, starts talking, and their lawyer says, don't say anything else. And the person's like, no, it's fine. I'm just going to keep talking. That happens all the time. And like in real life, when your lawyer says don't say anything, like you don't say anything, you know? That's what you're paying them to tell you.
You shut up.
Take a breath. This isn't real life.
You know how I know it's not real life? Did you hear that stalking phone call that Walderman left on
Oh, my
Inwood's
goodness.
phone?
Oh, my God.
How did that guy not win an Emmy Award for Best Guest Appearance in a voiceover?
I own you, Inwood. You lazy mutt. You're nothing but a dumb jock. No more free ride for you. My boys are gonna kick your overpaid ass back to Philly. Better put the kids to bed, unless you want them to see Daddy get schooled.
Wow. That was terrible. And it wasn't even like he could have said that on sports radio.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't, he didn't He didn't like call him names. He didn't say, I'm going to get you. He didn't say anything. Like, he was just like, you're not that good at basketball. And then he hung up the phone. Like,
Look, there's no way in real life that guy wouldn't have dropped an N-bomb on him.
Right. There was all
Exactly.
this. And they talked about like the coded racial language. There was actually a lot. And this is the problem with Law and Order, like especially in a specific era. It's a problem with Law and Order in general. But like there was a lot of race stuff in this episode that was completely unacknowledged. And including the fact that, that trick McCoy does at the end, making the black guy stand next to the white guy to show how, quote, scary he is.
Oh, every concealed carry guy in America was like, this is why. Because a giant hulking black man is going to stand next to my 5'8" body.
And there are all these unacknowledged, actually kind of smart things that they could have done to bring that storyline in. Like there was that great line that I think came up twice, like just because you bought a ticket doesn't mean you own me. Mm-hmm. And that really speaks to this idea and like a lot of the criticism of professional sports and, the sort of appropriation that, it's like we have like a lot of these minority players that white people are enriching themselves off of and being entertained by. There's a lot of like dialogue and discussion about that. And there was a lot of that in this episode, including that conversation with the high school or college coach. All these stereotypes, like you didn't have a father figure. So it's like there was so much interesting race stuff in this episode that was just left out there and never acknowledged. And then the only like explicit conversation about race is about this quote coded language about race on the answering machine, which didn't even sound like any code I've ever heard about race.
Yeah, that was the least racist part of the whole episode was that phone call. Like there was nothing in there about that at all. The whole rest of it was
you mutt.
Yeah, a mutt. Like what is like that's not a thing.
That just I don't see how that was a race thing. Yeah, is mutt? What is that? He looked all black to me. I don't know what. I don't think. I don't get it.
I agree. It was weird. It was
the
very
coach
weird.
very stereotypically like covering for him too. Like the play, like on Crime and Sports, we have what we call the silver-haired middle-aged white man, and that's like a coach or an owner or anyone who is benefiting from the athlete in detriment to the athlete himself or society in general. That's like our standard thing. That's like, an owner of a team that covers for a player, like that sort of thing. And that coach was like the perfect race. Doesn't matter. It's silver-haired middle-aged white man, but they could be any race. It doesn't matter. But the coach really fit that perfectly as he covered for a player on a murder charge, which I found hilarious.
Okay, so Borgia, again, gets on a train and goes to Philadelphia because that's apparently just everybody can take a whole day.
It's not that far. It's really close.
Hour and a half by train.
It is.
No, it's really close, but it's also like not their jurisdiction.
Yeah, okay. Well, she goes to the the training room, and the trainer says to her, "Hey,
How would you like it if people threw things at you and heckled you while you're trying to work?
Try walking through a cell block at Rikers.
So what exactly is Miggs throwing at you, Clarice?"
Oh, no. But she's not wrong. Rikers is a terrible place. I wouldn't want to walk through there looking like Annie Parise does. That would be bad.
Yeah, really. Not good for her. By the way, I love how he said, how'd you like people throwing things at you while you do your job? 5 seconds after a guy threw a towel at him and walked out of the room. That's what I thought he was talking about. Like, yeah, these guys are assholes. And then I'm like, oh, he means the fans. Okay, never mind. Like,
It reminds me of the apple tree from The Wizard of Oz. It's like, how'd you like someone to come along and pick something off of you? This is the problem that I had with this episode. There's often, a lot of twists and always usually a great twist at the end. And even though we have two suspects that are physically able to commit this murder.
Right.
It's the basketball player, and it's always the basketball player all the way through.
Right. Yeah.
The only thing that's sort of a twist is like, oh, this is what got him really mad.
Yeah.
Right.
As opposed to being mad enough.
They talk to the landlord of the building for, 15 seconds, and they figure out that he's not like a thick-necked Armenian who's looking to collect extra money. He's just like some business guy who's just filing lawsuits at will. So, you know what I mean? So that's not really that was a quick one. Like, he was off the table as a suspect in under a minute. So that, yeah.
Yeah, I think the better constructed episode would have been the opposite. Would have been that the basketball player was the suspect all along, and then it turns out it was because of the rent control thing. Like, to me, that's a much more compelling motive, the $2 million apartment.
Yeah.
Here are two plot ideas that I have, is that the agent would have confessed to it. And then understand the cousin, right? Yeah. And then at some point, you learn he's like protecting his cousin because he's also the gravy train for him. And then, McCoy, indicts, the basketball player in the last 2 minutes. Or Rebecca, you kind of like mentioned this as a joke, but this actually would have been really good, is if what was going on is the stalking was because these two guys had a love affair.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
And, you know, you had to kill him because they didn't want to get out and my image and whatnot.
Listen, if you decide that that's the plot and then watch the second half of this episode again, you could 100% see it going that way.
Yeah.
Because all this, like the phone records, he left him lots of messages. He called him all the time. You know, this guy really got under Inwood's skin. Like, no one could figure out why. It's like, because they're fucking. That's why.
That's why he was coming over that night. He was knocking on the door. It's like, I don't understand, but I'm just attracted to you. You understand? That's why I'm here.
I can't quit you.
I just love you, and I don't know why. I can't take it anymore.
And then I think that, you know, the visual of the giant basketball player standing next to the short white guy would be all the funnier if you thought of them as lovers.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
Maybe. That was actually disturbing to me because that is prejudicial.
It was.
I don't think that would be something that would be typically allowed.
It's one thing to say that Mr. Inwood is a 6'9", 250-pound professional athlete, and Mr. Walderman was a foot shorter, 60 pounds lighter, 15 years older, and an accountant. It's another thing to see the two men side by side, and since Mr. Walderman can't be with us.
I love how when the basketball player is standing next to the bailiff and they're doing the comparison, he can't help but make an angry face about it. He's sitting there like, I can't fucking believe they're making me do. It's like, you can't control yourself for 15 seconds. OJ went over to the jury box with a smile with the gloves on. You know what I mean? Like, hey guys, how you doing? I don't know, man, it just doesn't fit. This guy was just like, these motherfuckers, how dare they? Like, don't show rage now. Calm down. Good Lord. That was bad.
Yeah, he should have shrunk down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like OJ faked the glove being too tight.
Slouch.
Yeah. He should have been kind of slouchy.
Limp off the stand, like, I hurt my knee last week. And, really just make yourself look as physically. The bailiff was definitely not a physical specimen. So that was, I liked how they had the exact same person as the guy who was killed. We have we have the exact same model right here. We'll just plug him in.
How do you think he felt, though, when he's listening to this case going on? They keep talking about the victim as this couch potato schlub who was out of shape. Just like you. Come up here. Come on down.
Greg, come over here.
Come here. Let me see you.
You're in terrible shape.
The guy's like, now I'm a fucking exhibit in here? Great. I do not get paid enough.
You look like shit. Come on over here, bailiff. Let's do this. Very nice.
And for the amount of violent crime we've seen happen in courtrooms on Law and Order specifically, you'd think there'd be like a slightly higher requirement for the physical capabilities and size of these bailiffs.
Oh, no, they're all retired cops that are working on their pension.
Tiny, fat retired cops.
Yeah.
That's all I know that do that job. But he's probably the youngest one by 30 years.
Yep.
So I'm just glad the guy probably standing there, and I think, again, another twist could have been while the bailiff is standing there, McCoy says, okay, now demonstrate by picking him up by the neck.
That would have been great. I wanted an acquittal in this case. That would have been the plot twist. Just, we find him not guilty. McCoy turns and goes, I don't understand it. And they go, well, you didn't have any evidence. All you had was a fingerprint, and he has a lot of money and a high-powered attorney, and that's the way the world works, asshole. That would have been a great ending to the episode, but I don't think it would have been as satisfying to the viewing audience at home.
Let's take a look at the real-life story that inspired this episode. It's time for Ripped from the Headlines.
You think you know who did it. You think you know who did it. But you don't know who did it. You don't know who did it. Ripped from the headlines.
This episode was inspired by the infamous brawl between the Indiana Pacers and Detroit Pistons at the Palace of Auburn Hills in 2004. With only 45 seconds left in the game, Detroit's Ron Artest fouled Ben Wallace on a layup. This resulted in shoving and pushing amongst the players. To calm himself, Artest laid on the official's table when he was hit by a cup of Diet Coke thrown by a fan. Artest charged into the stands and punched a guy he mistakenly thought threw the soda. The player was then slugged by the other fan and Wallace's brother, who was at the game. Other players dove into the crowd, swinging at fans and one another. A radio announcer was trampled and broke 5 vertebrae. As security hurried the Pacers off the court, beer, food and bottles rained down on them. Someone even threw a folding chair. Fans rushed the court. Charlie Haddad and another fan charged Artest. Haddad fell during the tussle, then was punched by 2 players. Haddad was well known by security guards for saying he wanted to get into a fight with the player so he could get a big payout. The press dubbed it the Malice at the Palace. It resulted in 9 suspensions, 11 million in lost player pay, and criminal charges for 5 Pacers and 7 Pistons fans. In 2011, Artest legally changed his name to Meta World Peace.
Perfect.
Appropriate.
Yeah.
So, final score, Pacers 97, Pistons 82. Jermaine O'Neal got a double-double. So, James, they say this is the worst brawl in NBA history, was it?
Well, maybe with the fans. I'd say the one in the 70s where Rudy Tomjanovich almost died from getting sucker punched from the back. I would say that was probably worse as far as injuries go, maybe. But because he literally almost died from that. The ex-coach of the Rockets for years and years, Rudy Tomjanovich. But besides that, it was pretty damn bad. Yeah, you never see a brawl with the fans. You had Vernon Maxwell run up into the stands and punch a singular guy, and that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. But this was more scary and less funny. So, yeah, I would say it's pretty damn bad.
Rebecca, have you ever seen this fight where the players actually climb over the officials' table and whatnot? Yeah.
I have. I remember this. But what I don't understand is that there was a fan people who worked at the arena had frequently heard him say he wanted to get into a fight with the players so he could get a big payout.
Yeah.
That sounds either like a super bullshit story or that the security at this arena were not doing their fucking job because, why would that guy be allowed to come to any more games?
Well, O'Neal said that to the press, but nobody contradicted him.
Yeah.
But like they said in the Law & Order episode, you have season tickets with a bunch of other people who have seson tickets.
Right.
You know everybody
Right.
in
It's a
that
family.
area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you had an asshole in your section, you would know, why he's an asshole.
Yeah. He's like drunk uncle.
I am also happy that this guy got killed in this episode. He did deserve it. He was an asshole, and if I'm on that jury, I'm leaning toward if you came to my house and threatened my family and all that, I might get you in a headlock too. And if you broke your neck because you're not in shape, that's kind of on you. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I might be leaning towards acquittal on this one. I gotta say, if I'm being honest here.
Back in real life for a second here, what would be criminal assault in a bar or someplace like that is considered just part of the game. And police don't usually get involved with any sort of on the ice or on the court or on the field.
Fighting
and unsportsmanlike conduct that otherwise would draw charges. I can remember a Bruins player getting charged criminally for a bad, shot with his stick to the head of somebody, took him out. But
yeah, I think Marty McSorley got charged with that.
I think you're right.
For a
yeah.
stick. Yeah. That it's only really hockey that I've seen that in. I think I'm trying to think. I can't really think of anything else, any other sport. I think because you have a weapon in hockey, that might be it. Although baseball, I've seen guys with bats in their hand charge people and stuff, and they didn't get charged. I don't know. That's a really gray area, I guess. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I guess it's just what if a fan jumps on the court, it's trespassing. That's kind of a stupid charge.
Well, this is the thing about professional sports, right? Like the leagues can do whatever they want. They basically have their own police. They have their own judicial system, as we've learned from many cases that have unfolded in the last few years, their own discipline system. And kind of like a lot of institutions, they're reticent to open themselves up to the same kind of scrutiny that just regular people have, right?
Right.
So then you have players out in the real world. And they're also contending with, especially now, issues around race and the conduct you're supposed to have. And you think about what's happened to LeBron James. He's had attacks at his house. He had racist graffiti scrawled on his front gate.
Yeah, right.
And, would he have been within his right to go to that guy's house and pick him up by the neck? A fair person might say, sure. But he also knows he's in it's the real world, and he's not likely to fare well at trial as a super tall black guy when you see him when they play the same kind of stupid trick.
James, how much should the fans have been blamed for this Malice at the Palace? I mean, it's been a long time, so statute of limitations is passed. Feel free to speak freely.
Yeah, I never do. So I'll let loose for once. No, I think I'm of the mindset of don't poke people, especially if you're a 5'9", 42-year-old physically out of shape person. Don't start a fight with a guy who's 6'9" and in amazing athletic shape and could break your neck by getting you in a headlock. I was on the player side for that. If you throw something at the player and you hit the player and they're in another mindset. They're not in a mindset of being...
It's not a dunk tank.
Yeah, exactly. They're in a mindset of I'm in a fight with this other team. Everything's very heated. Everything's going, and you throw a thing at them. It's a controlled environment that you're throwing an uncontrolled thing into, and you can't expect the experiment to go the same way at that point. I feel like you have to have the security to protect that environment. So yeah, I'm on the player side. Break all the necks you want if people are bothering you. Go ahead, players.
Here's what kind of bothers me about this incident is that it's one thing if a thrown beer causes this tribalistic fight, but it was a Diet Coke. It's like the most unmasculine thing that you could throw. And it's not even, James, it's not even regular Coke. Diet Coke is not sticky.
You know what? You're right about that. Yeah, maybe he doesn't like NutraSweet or whatever they put in it there at the time. He was very upset about that. He's like, I like real Coke. He got pissed off. That could have been it. That could have been, what are you, a diabetic? He thought, he called him a pussy and then he jumped into the stands. I'm not sure what happened. The whole thing was a disaster.
Well, that's going to do it for us. We want to thank our guest, James Petrogallo. Where can our listeners follow you online, James?
You can follow me at Jimmy P is Funny on Twitter and wherever else on there. And, of course, listen to Crime and Sports and Small Town Murder. And P.S. I hate this movie. And you'll never get too much of me with all of those things. Or you'll always have too much, either one.
Rebecca Lavoie, where can our listeners follow you?
Well, you can listen to Crime Writers On. You can listen to Mom and Dad Are Fighting from Slate. Or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Reb Lavoie.
And you can track me on Twitter at Kevin P. Flint. You can also tweet to us at Law & Order Pod or follow us on Instagram at These Are Their Stories Podcast. Our newsreader was Cy Frater. Our theme music was composed and performed by Uncanny Valleys. Content assistance from Travis Roy. Lily Flynn is the Queen of Swag. To get ad-free episodes of These Are Their Stories a week early, sign up for Stitcher Premium. Get your first month free at StitcherPremium.com/crime. All clips in this podcast were used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act fair use exemption for criticism and commentary. Special thanks to the elite squad of the Law & Order Wiki community for preserving the evidence. If you want to know what episodes we're talking about in our upcoming shows, go to lawandorderpodcast.com. Sign up for our newsletter for a chance to be our next Law & Order Marathon winner. These Are Their Stories was recorded in the Yoga Loft above the Bodega in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio and is a production of Partners in Crime Media.
Partners in Crime Media.